Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Brittany if you're new here, and I'm a lawyer living in the Silicon Valley in California, and I have an almost 2-year-old. A lot of my videos are vlogs about me and my family living here in the Bay Area and basically being a new mother, although at this point I guess I'm almost 2 years in. Previously, I lived in New York and I filmed a lot of videos about my journey as a lawyer, which I think is where a lot of my subscribers initially came from. You're probably disappointed because a lot of the videos lately have been about my toddler Ezra, but I thought I would sit down and film this video because if you haven't seen already, click up here to watch my day in the life working from home as I transition to legal ops. And a lot of you said that you would be interested in hearing more about my journey, why I moved from being a lawyer to going into legal ops, and what that means. So this video will focus on my journey, why I moved to legal ops, and why I like legal ops. And then I'll also film a separate video about what legal ops is, what I do. You saw a little bit about it in my day in the life, but I wanted to go a little bit more in depth in case you are interested in joining or transitioning to legal ops. So let's get right into the video. If you're new here, you probably don't know a lot about my career path. So I have a lot of videos which you can see in my lawyer playlist about why I became a lawyer and what type of lawyer I am, or in this case was. I went to law school, and right after I graduated, I actually went in-house right away. Being in-house means that you work inside of a company instead of a law firm. So I worked as an assistant counsel, reporting directly to the GC or general counsel, and there were just 2 of us on the team. There I learned a lot about what it means to be a lawyer in the real world, what it means to work in-house, what it means to work inside of a company, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I then moved to New York after getting married, and that's where I got my first corporate counsel position at a tech startup. So the previous company was definitely not a tech startup, and this threw me into the world of technology. I worked for a SaaS company, so I learned a lot about sales negotiations, contract negotiations, reviewing red lines, NDAs, everything under the sun. I also reported directly to the GC, and it was just 2 of us on that team. So as you can imagine, it's a lot about building the legal department from the ground up, figuring out processes. When you're also just 2 people, you do everything, and that meant sending documents for signature, reviewing documents, storing them, figuring out how to store them, using Google Drive, using Gmail, Slack. All of that stuff was new, and I really got thrown into the fire. I feel like I learned so much in my 3 years there. And then that's when I moved back to California and got a commercial counsel position again at a tech startup, doing a lot of similar things. I would say 80 to 90% of my job was focusing on commercial negotiations. Sales is very important to the company, and as legal, we support sales, reviewing contracts that come in, sending contracts out, sending out templates, trying to get deals closed, and that was my main focus. So as a commercial lawyer, that meant that I negotiated a lot of contracts. So a little negotiation 101, there's 2 camps. So each company has their own, what we like to call paper or agreement. Often that's a master services agreement and some sort of order form or statement of work. And each time a customer wants to buy your product, they generally agree and sign your agreement. Working in a B2B space, that also means that your counterpart, your companies that are signing up for your product, often have lawyers on their side that are like me, reviewing contracts and making what we call red lines. Red lines are basically track changes in Microsoft Word. I know a lot of people don't use Microsoft Word anymore, but lawyers still use Microsoft Word. You make changes that you would like to see on the other person's agreement. Then they would send that back over to me as the other lawyer, and I would review them, accepting things that were fine, rejecting things that weren't, or making some small changes to things that they made changes to. This is basically a negotiation back and forth to see at the end who can agree to what and what you can agree to and sign to get the deal closed and for that customer to purchase your product. Now, there's the other camp where it's the customer has their own agreement or their own paper that they want you to agree to. So if you're dealing with a larger bank, for example, or a company that's very established, they might have their own vendor agreement, because technically I would be the vendor providing those services, and they require all of their vendors to sign their agreement. Often this means that I, as the other lawyer, have to go through their agreement and make my own red lines. Now, as you can imagine, different company different business models, different products. They have one size fits all, but this also requires a lot of phone negotiations. So pre-COVID, we would often set up phone calls between both legal parties. We would discuss the red lines on the phone, going over each one, arguing back and forth until we came to an agreement, or in some cases a disagreement. And then it's kind of playing chicken to see who would give up first so that we can get the deal closed. Now a lot of the calls happen on Zoom, so you're actually face to face, which in my opinion is worse because you're actually having to talk to the person and argue with them versus just being on the phone. This leads to why I did not like being a commercial attorney. As you probably noticed in some of my previous videos, being a lawyer wasn't exactly what I thought it would be, and being in-house was probably the best type of lawyer I could have been and the best experience I could have had. But the one thing I would always dread was reviewing red lines. Whenever a salesperson would send back red lines, it would often take hours, if not days, to review them, going back and forth, arguing over what seems like petty things because you have your position and they have their position, and how are you going to come to a middle ground? Also, whenever we had to get on the phone or argue, now I know a lot of lawyers love arguing. They like talking on the phone and getting up in front of other people. I really did not like that at all. Since law school, I even talked about in previous videos, which is why I like being a commercial attorney in some sense, because you never have to go to court or face your opposing counsel. But when it came to negotiations, you do have to face them. And writing emails and writing track changes and comments is one thing, but having to argue it on the phone on the fly always gave me anxiety. It's also very adversarial, as you can imagine. You're trying to fight for your position, they're trying to fight for their position. Some lawyers are not that nice. They can be very rude and abrupt, abrasive. You just have to navigate those types of personalities. And honestly, it's just not fun. It's not enjoyable. And that's why I thought maybe there's something else I can do in the legal world that's not negotiating agreements. So I can't pinpoint the exact moment that I realized or learned about legal ops. I believe it was sometime at my last or previous job where I was attending various CLEs, going to meetings, and I believe I learned about the term legal operations. Obviously, at this point, I had already been thinking about how can I pivot my position, what do I enjoy about my job, and what do I not enjoy. I really enjoyed the operations piece of my position, contract management, dealing with technology. At both of my previous companies, I had to find a contract management system and run it, learning about how to run it, implementing technology, teaching people how to use it, becoming that expert on it. Like I said, being a legal department of 2, it meant that I was the one generating contracts, reviewing those red lines, also sending them out for signature, and also storing the documents. If anyone in the company had questions about where do I find this, do you have a copy of this, I was the one that found it. I did trainings for sales. I helped them with Salesforce, learning those technologies and how it can help legal. All of these things that I enjoyed, I started to realize fell under this umbrella of legal operations. So legal operations, keeping the legal department running efficiently and smoothly. And then there's the commercial part, which is actually negotiating the agreements and getting those signed. So once I realized that legal operations or contract management or being a contract manager really sounded like what I like to do about my current job, I decided to give it a shot. I started looking on LinkedIn and other websites about what legal operation jobs were out there, what companies they were for, what was in the job description, and what seemed interesting to me. And honestly, reading those job descriptions really solidified the fact that I wanted to be in legal ops. So lastly, I just wanted to mention why I chose to go into legal operations, what I liked about legal operations. I already alluded to the fact that legal operations was about making the legal department run smoothly. I was already doing this in my previous jobs. I was already in charge of keeping our documents organized, keeping our processes efficient, and putting processes in place. Like I said, I had to find technology to help create contract management systems. At some companies, I didn't have a contract management system, so I had to make it work with Google Drive, making sure that people understood what templates to use, training sales on how to best understand our templates, our sales contracts, how to present those to the other party, how to make sure that my job as a lawyer and my general counsel and potentially other lawyers on the team are able to do their jobs. Can they find templates easily? Making sure there's a playbook with alternative provisions to easily insert into contracts. A lot of this is what we like to call the contract lifecycle. So beginning to end, how does that process look like? How does that flow? How can we use technology to help us? And at the end, making sure we have all of the data we need in case we need to run reports, in case sales asks us for something, in case the leadership team asks us for something. We can understand metrics. Honestly, legal operations is very open-ended, and I'll probably talk about that in my next video, but it's really what you make of it. Each job description that I read even had different focuses. The bread and butter is what I enjoyed, which is the contract lifecycle management, contract management, organization and efficiency. And being a lawyer, I understood what it meant to be on the other side and what helped me to do my job. And so I felt that as a legal operations manager or being in legal ops, I could see it from that lens and craft the legal department and the legal processes in a way that could help the lawyers on my team. This wasn't an easy decision. Often, legal operations jobs do not require you to be a lawyer or a paralegal or have any JD. It's a plus for sure, and I think it's what helped me get jobs and interviews, but technically I would no longer be practicing law, and that is something that is hard to let go of. It's definitely a pride thing. You know, you go to law school for 3 years, you're in thousands of dollars of debt, and you have this title of being a lawyer. You would like to say that you are an actual lawyer. However, moving to legal ops, technically I would get a pay cut. I am not making a lawyer's salary. I'm no longer technically a lawyer. I maintain my bar license, but I don't practice law. Am I willing to give all of that up? And obviously the answer was yes, because I knew that I enjoyed doing legal operations and not the commercial negotiations. So why be in a job where you're unhappy, where you dread certain aspects of it, when you can do something that you really enjoy? And in the end, that's why I decided to move to legal operations. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I know I went all over the place just describing my journey, how I came to realize I enjoyed legal operations, and a little bit about what it means to me. In my next video, I will go more in depth about what I do at my job for legal operations and what potentially you could be doing if you decide to move to legal ops. If you have further questions, please comment below. Let me know if there's other specific topics under the umbrella of legal operations that you want to learn about. Please give this video a thumbs up if you liked it and subscribe for more content, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!